Nowadays, science and technology have become essential for the world's development, and opportunities like this one are perfect to put our skills into action, show what we are made of, and demonstrate the world what we are capable of doing as a nation. We are Team Mexico.
Each year, all the participant countries of the first Global Challenge get the task to recruit a selection of 5 members and 2 mentors to work together and build a robot to compete in the international field of the Global Championship. I'm Leo Salazar, and I'll work with the team as a mentor for the programming and electronics areas.
The programming area has a task to bring to life every system and mechanism that exists in the robot. Our abilities with coding, as well as our logic thinking and technical knowledge, allows us to do this in the most efficient, clear, and elegant way.
Right now, our efforts are aimed to develop a robot code as soon as possible, but we are thinking even further, and we are learning about different programming forms and methods in order to help several foreign teams with their projects.
Designing the robot chassis or its specific mechanism seems to be easy, but in fact, it's a whole adventure by itself. Part of my job is doing this in the very first time, as well as connecting and setting up all the electronic components in the robot.
I'm really excited about this new opportunity. We are ready to give the best of ourselves. And for me, my job is to keep all the team's social media updated, as well as present all the multimedia material when they are needed. It's awesome to be part of this. I'm really enjoying it.
Building the robot is a whole process. For thinking what mechanical systems are more suitable to our necessities, to creating prototypes every single time a new mechanism is required. My job is to coordinate these efforts to get the best results possible.
Right now, we are working with available rep kits we have. Our team strategy is a rolling process, and we are sure that as soon as we have it, the mechanism of the robot will be completely ensured.
Also, there are guidelines and due dates we must follow. One of our principal responsibilities is to be in constant contact with our sponsors, the media, all the other teams in the world, and various organizations. All of these activities, as well as the documentation related, are down to me.
We're all taking the best of ourselves, and we know that being here represents an enormous responsibility. But we also know that there's no bigger pride than representing your country and their people. My name is Max, and I'll be the coach for the 2019 Mexican First Global Challenge team. We are ready to put in high not only our efforts, but more importantly, our nation.
Hey everybody, welcome to this new program of Global Talks. Today we are having once again our Friday Night Live, and for this we are sharing the stream with one of our dearest friends here in FGC. So welcome Arjun from Wizards.exe. You may remember Arjun from previous Friday Night Lives from the previous Friday show, where we solved several doubts about mechanisms, electronics and programming. And today we are just 4 weeks away from Dubai, from the beginning of the competition, and most of the teams have already finished their robots. So today we will be discussing some of the mechanisms you teams have created, and we'll have some feedback about them. So, well, go ahead Arjun, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Arjun. I'm on First Tech Challenge team Wizards.exe, and last year I was the robot lead on Team USA 2018.
Pleasure to have you with us, Arjun. And here we got from our technical crew, our captain.
So I'm Jorge Venegas. I'm this year's Team Mexico's captain, part of the technical team. and I'm really proud to be here with you, Arjun, again.
And my name is Ricardo Salazar. I'll be your host today. We are live from Torreon, Mexico, and welcome to Global Talks. Arjun, it's always a pleasure to have you here with us. You have demonstrated that you are deeply committed with First values and all what they represent. And if you're aware of the Global Challenge groups and chats, you may know that Arjun has always been really active on them, sharing links and videos about how to do several things in mechanics and programming, mostly. So today we're really happy to show Arjun most of the prototypes and most of the advances you FGC teams have done. So, he has mentored several FGC teams, it's important to say that, and he represents a human question hub for First Global, so it's really amazing to have you with us today. Arjun, first of all, why don't you tell us a bit of what you have been doing in these last weeks in the Global Challenge world?
So, for me, I've been trying to continue to be active on, all of the groups. And our team, we've been releasing many different videos for First Global teams now, and we've been trying to be getting one video on our YouTube out almost every day. And we're going to have a few more videos coming out in the soon. For example, one of them that just got recorded really recently is one on programming holonomic drivetrains, which is going to be public very soon, which take a look at when it comes out. But that's what I've been doing.
What I really like about your videos, Arjun, is that you explain things, your team explains things about FGC in a way that it's really simple for everybody to understand it. Even if you're not into the First world, you get the chance to learn a bit about programming or mechanics mostly. So that's what I really like about the videos. And as Team Mexico, we have been working in several different things, so I'd like my friend Venegas to explain us a bit of what we have been doing as Team Mexico in the technical part.
Okay, so we started working 2 months ago when our kit arrived on August 2nd. This was the first prototype we made. As you can see, it is like a big ball intake. And basically what we try to do is to get the big pollutants, the macro pollutants, into a class of bugs that is in a robot, and with these mechanisms that works with several type of wheels, we can look for the balls in the field, then get the balls to the highest part of the robot, and then put it into the box. This second prototype that we made a few weeks ago was another space of intake. We use almost all the wheels that we could, and I think that in the photo we are using more of the available wheels we can use in the kit. So teams, be sure that you don't use more pieces
what you're allowed
that are allowed to.
Yeah.
We try to also another thing that we have been trying to make is this type of shooter that Rev Robotics and First Global have released under resources. This shooter, we made it a few months ago, maybe 1 month and 2 weeks, and we were considering the opportunity or the chance to throw the micropollutants to the highest level of the field, and we made it and we tested and we get so many conclusions. We think that it is a really good mechanism that a lot of teams are using. If you have seen the photos or the videos that the teams around the world are releasing, you can see that many of them are using this mechanism in the robot because it is it is effective in all ways. And what else can I say? Also of this we are going to talk a little bit about the last mechanism. The shooter. I have seen in Instagram and in other social media that few teams have been trying to improve this mechanism. You know that it works fine, but all teams are trying to make this mechanism work better, and I think that it is a really good opportunity to all the teams to encourage them to improve the mechanisms that First Global or Rev Robotics are releasing. And we didn't continue with this mechanism because we don't think that shooting is the best strategy for us. So we get to the conclusion that it is a really good mechanism that a lot of teams are going to use in the competition, but Team Mexico is certainly not going to use it.
So, I'll just give my thoughts on it. I think it looks actually like you guys have done a lot, and I think that your mechanism for the macro pollutants and intaking them is a really interesting idea. So I think that that's going to be a really cool thing to see at the competition, and I hope it turns out well. So good luck to you guys, of course.
An interesting thing about our intake, as you can see in the picture, the macropollutants get in from the floor, then we take them to the highest position of our intake, and if you can see, we have like an extrusion that is in an angle. So when the ball goes to the highest part of the intake, then it went to the side of the robot automatically due to the position of the extrusion. So we didn't want to make like a mechanism to take the ball to the side of the robot, so we make this like Mexican mechanism. Yeah, this Mexican style mechanism that it automatically take the ball to the place you want it. What else can we say? Let's continue with another mechanisms in another videos.
Well, in a few moments, we'll notice that there's a team that not only made a shooter for the micropollutants, but for the macropollutants as well. So it's really interesting, and we'll see it in a minute. And well, let's just continue here. So this is how today's show will work, guys. Some of you, well, most of you, send us pictures and videos of your mechanisms and your prototypes, and we're gonna show them in here. Arjun will see them, and he may give some feedback about each one of them. We also took some of the top videos and the prototypes we got in your social media, so that's what we're gonna talk about today. And well, Arjun, I don't know if you got any recommended team you'd like to see first. You haven't already seen the pictures, and I don't know if you got something that you may think it's interesting for the competition.
Yeah, well, I would actually like to start off with my home country's team, of course. It's Team USA.
Has been really active in Twitter. I think that one of their strongest social media is Twitter. They're constantly posting and tweeting about everything they do. So that's one of the things I like from them. And from the very first moment, they began to create prototypes and mechanisms. And well, that's really remarkable. So well, go ahead, Arjun. Here we got an example of what Team USA has been doing the last week.
So we actually have two images from Team USA. This is the first one that we have, and this is going over their macro pollutant prototype. I think it's very interesting because from this, it looks like they actually have a rotating arm with the two joints, which allows them to score it into the middle level with a great intake for the macro pollutants. So I think that this will actually turn out great, though, again, it's not finalized yet. It's still a prototype. But again, I look forward to seeing how it performs at the competition, because it looks like a very solid idea.
So let's go to the next image.
Of Team USA, I think we have another image from Team USA.
Yeah.
It's a video, actually, yeah.
So this is their micropollutant scoring prototype, where you can see that it actually uses a catapult instead of what most teams do. Most teams will use a normal single flywheel shooter. They use a catapult, which is something that I think is very creative and something that you won't see many teams do in First Global if they're just using, because of First Global released the guide on it. So I think there's actually a great prototype right here. Do you guys have anything else to add on it?
Yeah, I've seen it in Team USA social media, especially on Twitter. They have also made another type of catapult that I think that was a little bit more interesting. It was also for micropollutants, and it was like kinda small. It was even smaller than this one, and I think that what Team USA is doing or has been doing is really amazing because they are thinking like a little bit different than other teams do. I mean, it's USA, so it's something normal, but we have tried doing these catapults, but we haven't get to the point of making these mechanisms the ones that we're gonna use in a robot. And I think that it is really interesting the way this catapult works. As you can see, it is not something that you would like do or try or something that you would think about. But I think that it is not completed at all, so we are missing like the best part of it. That is the one that is gonna put the micropollutant into the catapult. So I would like to see how it works maybe later.
I'd like to see how both the micropollutant intake and this catapult work together in the robot. So we'll be waiting for Team USA's final robot, maybe a taser or a robot reveal. So we're expecting for that. And well, another team that has been very active in social media and that even though they received the kit with a bit of delay, have already released a video about it. It's Team Luxembourg, and here we got a video they uploaded I think yesterday or 3 days ago about the robot, and I think it's really interesting. So let's just watch it for a second. It works.
Okay, so I think the first thing that I'm gonna talk about is their drivetrain. They're using an autonomic drivetrain that I think is the most effective one that we can use in the competition, in my opinion, because I have dropped them all. I think that using this type of drivetrain is a very big advantage because you can move in the direction you want. Also, their mechanism with the linear motion kit is really interesting because they can move it in a very big angle. That is something that I think that they're gonna use, or they're gonna put like an intake for the small balls in the top of the mechanism, and they're gonna take them to the highest level of the playing field. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. So I think this is great. A few comments that you could notice, which I think I'm not sure what to think about them. So you can notice they're actually using the 60mm Omni wheels on their drivetrain. And so it really is a matter of personal preference what your team chooses to use. But most teams will choose to use 90mm wheels just because it makes their robot a little bit faster, but because the field is really big. But from it looks like their robot's going fast enough, and you don't need to drive very much in this game. Another thing that's really cool about their robot here is the rotating linear slides. And from what I can piece together, I'm fairly sure this is because of the fact that the top level of the processing card is actually inset a little bit, so you can't just rotate vertically and reach up into it. You have to reach over a little bit. So this seems like a great solution to that problem. And I've not seen very many teams do rotating linear slides very successfully. So this is very great. And then finally, it looks like they have the little servo arm on the front. This looks like it's going to be very good because it's just going to be able to bring them into their robot and keep it in there so that either they can move it to the human player station or they can just put it into their robot and intake it up. So overall, I think this looks like a very solid concept. And I think that this is going to be one-of-a-kind robot, essentially, because you're not going to see very many other teams use rotating linear slides at the competition.
Certainly, this robot is going to be one of the unique robots in the competition, and I can't wait to see it working.
Today we got some unique robots that we're gonna watch. And well, Arjun, I don't know if you got anything you'd like to be next.
I think that we start off for a unique robot. I think Team UK is something really interesting.
Okay. UK. I really like Team UK's robot, most of all because they tried to emulate the tower bridge in their intake. So it's really amazing, but about the technical part, everything's really interesting. So I don't know if you got anything to say, Jorge.
Okay, so what we have here is a mechanism for the micropollutants and intake. I've seen this mechanism in a lot of robots that I've seen in social media. I think that it's maybe the easiest mechanism to take the micropollutants, and I think that it works really good. So I think that Team UK is doing a very good job. I see it works with a server, right? Or okay, so I think that is a little bit big. I don't know what you think, but I think that it can work really good with the micropollutants.
Yeah. So I think that this is a really good intake mechanism just because it's very simple. But the main thing that I think is the interesting part of this robot is the fact that the intake folds down. And this is something that is fairly complex to build. And so many teams aren't going to do that just because of how hard it is to actually build that. But they've done it in such a way that it looks very sturdy, and it looks like they'll just be able to lower down on a bunch of micropollutants and get it, but keep it up when they need to get back to scoring and they need their robot to be a little bit smaller. So this is a really interesting thing, the choice to make it fold down and how they made it fold down, which is they made it fold down by actually putting a piece of string on a belt, which is also really interesting. So
Go ahead.
So I think that their intake is going to be one of the few intakes at the competition that's going to be very successful and also fold down.
The intake folds down, and I think they're gonna have to think about a strategy to organize their times and maybe don't fall down the intake when it's not necessary, so they don't get to waste necessary time to make to score. So that's one of the things we'll be waiting about Team UK. And another team that has been working really hard in the robot, and by really hard I mean really, really hard, is Team Brazil. They got their kit of parts 2 weeks ago. They didn't even know they were the FGC team. So they have been working really, 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 really hard. And there we got their first try of an intake and of a robot. And I think it's really memorable that they have been working so hard in such a very short time. So I think we should maybe talk about a bit about it. So Arjun, I don't know if you got anything to say?
Yeah, so I think that this looks again, for only having 2 weeks of this robot, this is amazing right here. Because they've got a drivetrain and an intake already working. I think those two wheels right there look like it's actually a shooter right there, those two wheels in the center, but they're going to need to figure out soon how they're actually going to bring the micropollutants down into the shooter, which is, I feel like that's their next step for this robot. What do you think?
I think that the drivetrain is a little bit, it's nice. The wheels that they're using are gonna make them move in the way I think they're expecting to move. Using the Omni wheels in the front and using the other ones in the back, and using 4 motors. I don't know, I'm not sure if using that motors in the drivetrain is maybe the best decision. I also agree with you that I think that the wheels that are in the middle are like a kind of shooter, but I also agree in what you said that they are looking for a way to put the micropollutants into the shooter to score them. I saw on the back the intake that I think that is working really good. And what else I can say?
I actually have something else. One thing that I think is going to be a good strategy for them is with this robot, if they aren't able to figure out how to make a transition between the intake and the shooter, because it is, again, very hard to make that, is they could just intake micropollutants and then put them in the corner at the human player station, and then have the human player load them into the shooter.
One of the things I'm not sure about is the position of the motors. They are basically on the
environment.
They're basically on the outer part of the robot, and I think that they can get they can get damaged. I don't know if another team crashes with them or something like that. And I think they're gonna have a little bit of problems with this position with the motors. Also with the wiring, they're gonna have a little bit of problems. As you can see, the motor that is in the back part of the robot is almost in the corner of the robot, and I think that they're gonna have to change this position of the motors to make it a little bit more safer.
Yeah, of course we're talking about prototypes, and we know this isn't going to be the final version of the robots. They're going to upgrade it a few more times. So what you see here is just the first part of a really, really, really great job that Team Brazil and all the other teams will do. So in the next weeks, we'll be watching their advances. And well, thank you Team Brazil for showing us this sneak peek of your robot. And well, we were talking about unique teams. And now I'd like to introduce Team Israel's shooter, but for macropollutants. They sent us this video in the morning. It's, of course, censored for the moment. They're waiting for their robot reveal. But, well, I think it's one of the first macropollutant shooters I've seen in the competition so far. So, well, I think there are some things to say about this. We got some questions because we cannot see what the mechanism is exactly, but we can figure out some things about it. So I don't know if you got something to say, Jorge.
I'm really excited to know how it works. They got me like
thrilled.
Yeah, I can see how the mechanism works, but it is really amazing. I just really want to see how it works.
Yeah. So I think. Did you have anything else to say, or should I? I can give my thoughts too.
I think that in talking about a strategy, I think that scoring the macropollutants in the third level is not the best decision, but they are like making sure to get almost all the points they can. But I think that is maybe going to be one of the. I'm not sure if another team is focusing on scoring macropollutants in the third level of the playing field, but I think that is maybe not the best decision, but I think it works really good. I don't know if you want to say something.
Yeah. So I think that from this video, I've sent it to a few friends from the FTC community, and from the consensus that I've had is basically either it's a flywheel shooter or a catapult, which those are the two like main ways you can actually build shooters in the robot. I personally think that it's going to be a catapult because you can see if you look at the micropollutant shooter guide, you know how many gears are required in order to get the motor to the speed required to just shoot the micropollutants. And the macropollutants are like something like 10 times as heavy as the micropollutants, something like that. So you're going to need a lot more gears for that. So I think it's going to be a catapult, especially because they also didn't show them shooting many in the same time. They only showed shooting one, and there was no spin on that ball, which is what it looks like there wasn't any spin on there. So one thing that I think about the macropollutant shooter is I think that it's actually a great idea to shoot macropollutants into the top level, and then if there's too many of them, they'll just fall down into the second level. I think that's how it's going to work, though I'm not completely sure because we don't have enough at my place that we can really test that. But I feel like it's a great idea to shoot them up into the top level because there's more than enough space for like 3 or 4 macropollutants in the top, and then the rest will just fall down.
Yeah, like you said, I think that scoring the macropollutants in the highest level, I think is not the best decision. I think that if they can make their shooter or their catapult to make the macropollutants go into the second level, would be like a better idea. But I'm really amazed of how they made this, and I just want to watch it work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Team Israel, for sending us this video. Arjun, any other thought about this specific mechanism?
No, I think that their robot's very solid. I think that it's going to perform well.
More information about it, Team Israel, if you're thinking about uploading another video, please do so because we're really interested about seeing how your macropollutant system works.
Yes.
And well, going to the next team that sent us a bit of their images is Team Albania. We got one picture from Instagram and another picture of the robot that they sent us. In here we can see them working in one of their intakes. I think it's the one for the micropollutants. So, well, I don't know if you got anything to say, Arjun, about this one.
Yeah, so I think that both of these photos look vastly different once you show the second photo. Yeah, So both of them show vastly different robots, but a few things that you can tell from these photos pretty easily is that they're using an H drive because they're using 4 wheels omni-wheel tank drive. So it seems like they're using an H drive. And if you think about it, I think they've done a lot of prototyping because they first had an angled belt to bring the micropollutants up, but now they've switched over to the vertical belts to bring them in. And it seems like they're going to be using a shooter or linear slides in order to shoot them and put them up, because you can actually see there's a little bit of a tube in there. So it looks like they've gotten their transfer from the intake to the scoring mechanism down really well. So I think that this is actually a really common thing, is to have vertical belts to bring the micropollutants in. But one thing that I'm not sure about is the polycord, the belt, loses tension a lot, like very quickly. So our team last year, we actually, whenever we weren't playing in a match, we took the belts off of the pulleys just to keep them from getting too loose. So I'm not sure if teams are considering doing that. And yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Team Albania, we would like to have more information about their mechanisms, because as Arjun said, they're completely different. We got an example from Instagram, another one you sent us. So we are also really interested in knowing what they're planning, and maybe, know a few more so we can maybe give you some feedback. And going to an African team, we got Team Nigeria that also sent us a few images about them. And it's also with Team Nigeria, there's a situation. They also received their kit with a really considerable delay. They have been working, Team Nigeria, with both their intakes and their prototypes. So here we got an example of their drivetrain. They have just uploaded, they have already completed. So Jorge, what you can see from what you're watching?
Okay, so I can see that they're using 4 omni wheels and 2 traction wheels, and I think that is maybe one of the best drivetrains that most of the teams are going to use in the competition. I think that this drivetrain we have tested a lot, and in my opinion, I think that it works really, really good. And I see like a big sprocket on the chain. And I think that it's gonna be like a little bit, or even faster than other robots. And I'm not sure if that robot is gonna be able to carry the other mechanisms that they're gonna put into. But I think that is really amazing, and it is pretty similar to the drivetrain that Team Mexico is using.
Yeah. So this looks really good, especially since they received their kit late. There's a few things. There's this thing called chain wrap, and this is essentially making sure that your sprockets and your chain don't skip. And from this video, it doesn't look like the Team Nigeria actually took into account the chain wrap. So what you want to have is you want to have at least 90 degrees of wrap around each sprocket to make sure it doesn't slip. But the center wheel doesn't look like it got very much, though again, I can't tell. So I'm going to post a link in the Twitch chat called FTC Game Manual Part 0. And this is essentially a team-made guide, and it has a very good section on chain wrap and how to use sprockets and chain. So I'll post that really quickly in the Twitch chat. But again, I think chain wrap is going to be a big thing that they should focus on, and making sure that those 2 motors and your drivetrain can hold the weight of their robot once they add things to it.
FGC 2019 WhatsApp group if you're willing to check that information. And continuing with the next robot, we got I think we're just pending one team at all. It's just one team pending, and I'm really impressed about Team Argentina's 2019 process. Beginning with their process to select with their national selection is completely different from anything I've seen in any other country. They create their own championship. They build their own field, and they just make robots. Every region of the country makes a robot, and the robot that won is really interesting because of their elevating system. They are using an elevator to put micropollutants in the 3rd level, also in the 2nd level. And I think we got some things to say about this one. So who goes first?
Okay, so
Jorge.
Like Ricardo said, I'm really amazing of the process of selection that Argentina does to select their representing team. Basically, they have already finished their robot. And also they have like a lot of ideas of all the other teams that were competing against them. I saw the winning team, the robot, and I think that is really amazing what they did. They're basically focusing on the micropollutants and getting them to the highest level of the playing field. They are also using as you can see, the linear slides, and they work like really good. And I think that what they have done is maybe one of the things that most of the things are considering to do. To make linear slides, take the micropollutants to the highest level, and score the most points possible. Another robots that I've seen in the video that Team Argentina has released, they have like already the experience of playing in the field.
That's an advantage.
Yeah, that's an advantage, and I think that
it's really cool.
This team in specific has more advantages than other teams. I don't know if you want to say something else.
I agree completely with what you've said. Their robot looks very solid. With linear slides, they seem to have gotten it consistent enough to be able to lift to the top level every single time. It does look like their linear slides are slightly on an angle, as you can see in the video, because they're angled past vertically. So that's something that teams should consider, is angling their linear slides. But other than that, their robot looks great, and I think it's already ready for the competition, like you said.
Okay, so I don't know if you got anything else to add, Jorge, or we can pass to the next section of the show.
I'm just really amazed of this robot and this country, because I think that they have done a very different selecting process from
I think for most of the teams that have never competed in a first related activity, is that they are frightened, they are scared of the competition and how it works. So in the case of Team Argentina, I think they don't have that quite much of first events or teams in their country. So they are doing a great decision to put a championship in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. So teams may be surrounded by the competition vibes from the first moment, so they get like with a little bit of knowledge about how the competence works. Because for example, here in Team Mexico, one of the things is that we have never been in a first global competition as a team competing, so we're still a bit confused about how it works. And in the case of Team Argentina, they have already solved maybe this question, so it's really interesting. And of course, Team Argentina, Team Albania, Team Brazil, each one of the teams that sent us videos or that we got them from their social media have been working really hard. And we are really, really interested to see what their advance is going to be in the next weeks. You may have seen our faces of excitement with Team Israel system of the micropollutants or with Team Argentina. So we are willing to know more about. So if you get any more videos or you get anything to say, if you want to maybe share your robot or your mechanisms on Global Talks, don't hesitate to ask us. Don't hesitate to ask Arjun for feedback, and I'm sure we can help you out. And well, all of those videos were really good. Thank you for all the teams who shared them with us. You are doing such a great job. And well, moving on to the next section of the show, I'd like to set up a discussion with you, Arjun, about your impressions of this 2019 challenge and the mechanisms we have just seen. Of course, you got a lot of experience in first, not only FGC, but FTC as well. So, well, is there anything specific about this competition mechanisms that you see unique from the previous years of FGC?
Yeah. So I think that one thing last year they didn't have a hang. In 2017 they did. But again, while the hang is worth the most points this year, even if you don't get a hang, your team is still probably going to get the 10 points for parking. So teams should consider the hang as 10 extra points instead of 20 points total. And another thing that I feel like is going to happen is this year there's going to be a lot more of the same designs for scoring pollutants. It's going to come down to linear slides, shooters, or rotating arms. And that's what I think is going to happen is 95% of the robots are going to be one of those three types.
I agree with you. We have seen in all the videos we watched a few minutes ago, most of the things are basically on these three types of mechanisms. They're going to use the linear slides, they're going to use the shooters, or they're going to use another kind of mechanisms. So I'm just really amazed. I'm just really interested on the way that teams are going to use it, because we are different in a lot of ways, and we are going to make this mechanism similar, but they're going to have a lot of differences. So I've seen in WhatsApp groups teams that are making linear slides with almost 7 extrusions or something like that, 10 extrusions. I don't know if they want to go to the sky or something like that. But I think that is really interesting, the way that teams are putting their creativity into their mechanisms and into their robot to make the robot work in the best way they think. So I'm just waiting to the competition to see how teams make and try to their mechanisms to evolve and to work even better each time. So I just really want to see all the teams that are watching this video and the others to get to the competition and to watch what we have done.
Yeah, of course. And well, also Arjun, you were part of 2018 Team USA. So from that year and from this year, do you see that there was maybe last year or this one a common problem in all the teams? Because we know most of us have been working with their shooters or with their elevators, but you, from your perspective of veteran in FGC, do you see any common problem in most of the teams we're working this year in FGC?
Yeah. So one of the main problems is with the Rev Linear Slide Kit V2. So this is something that a lot of teams, not just First Global, but First Tech Challenge teams too, have had problems with because it requires so much fine-tuning in order to get right. And there are a few solutions for this that some teams have done. So I know one of the teams that I mentor, they just decided to only use the side sliders, not use the double-sided sliders in between the extrusion. Another thing that some teams have done is removed the screws in between the double-sided sliders. This is something that FTC teams will use, and just keep the end caps on the linear slides just to keep it so that the double-sided sliders don't fall out. But it's very hard to tune the linear slides correctly. And then another thing that teams have been having problems with this year is actually getting the linear slides strung, getting them string and driven in both directions, because most teams want to have them so it's powered both up and down. So this is something that's very hard because essentially the main solution that I've thought of is using chain for both up and down, chain for the first stage, and using string for every stage following that, and using cascading stringing. But using the string, driving it with string only is fairly hard because the pulleys in the kit are not very good for actually wrapping string around it for linear slides. They're not meant for that. They're meant for the pulley cord. So that's one thing. And another thing that I'm going to caution teams about is their hang mechanism. So you should test it out if you're able to, because what's probably going to happen if your hang mechanism is like in the back of your robot or in the front of your robot is that there's no back plate on your on the hanging bar. So your robot might just lift itself up with the back up if the hang mechanism is in the back, and then the front of the robot will just sag down and still touch the ground because there's no back to it. So just make sure that you're able to test that or see if that's a problem that you might have. So do you guys have anything else to add?
I think that what you said about the linear slides is something that is really common, and I have seen that or listened about it from a lot of teams. We get one way to attach the cord and to make it not go out, that I think is really good. But we have tested a lot, and we have also had a lot of problems. So I think that we also have problems with our motors. I don't know if another teams have this, or if it's a rev thing. We are having a lot of issues with the CoreX motors, using them with encoders. So if your teams have like these kind of problems and these kind of issues, maybe you can send them to us and we can like get to one conclusion to make all the teams solve the problem.
Yeah. So the motors problem has been a pretty big thing this year because Rev Robotics and First Global, I don't know who did this and who's in charge of the First Global app, but there's a few things. Is that the Expansion Hub and Control Hub did not ship with the latest firmware, so that's why First Global released firmware update guides. So teams should make sure that they update their firmware on both their Control Hub and Expansion Hub before they actually start trying to program motors. If they're having any errors with that, they should try and do that. And another thing is, for some of the HD hex motors, I know this, is that the encoders have to be fixed a little bit. And Team UK has a good video guide on how to fix them. I'm not sure about the problem with the core hex motors, as I've never personally encountered it. But yeah, I think that the motors problem is a pretty big thing this year.
Those videos from Team UK, and well, if you get any doubt, don't hesitate to ask either us or Arjun, or check out in the web. There are some good options to solve that problems. And well, there was another question, but my queue is telling us that we are running out of time, so we're just gonna skip the next question and go to the final one. And well, here it goes. We know you're really good at this, Arjun, and you have showed it to us. You're like you're kind of live encyclopedia. So we got another question before we finish the transmission, and I'd like to know if you had, for example, last year, a checklist for the competition. We're just a month away from Dubai, and I don't know if you got anything to say to the teams, if you had any type of checklist that you may want to share so they don't miss anything on the process.
Yeah, so there are a few things you should do before you get to the competition, in my opinion. So the first thing you should do, once your robot is done, of course, is switch your Wi-Fi channel to a 5 gigahertz channel. They're probably not going to check out with it at the competition, but it's something that'll help you fix any Wi-Fi problems. And my team, I personally made a changing channels video for First Global teams, and I just posted a link in the Twitch chat for it. And this is one of the things you should do before the competition so you don't have any Wi-Fi problems. And another thing is try to update the Control Hub and Expansion Hub firmware if you can. Make sure your robot fits in a 50 centimeter cube, as I've heard a lot of teams ask, is it okay if my robot is like 5 millimeters out, half a centimeter out, a centimeter out? No, it's not okay if you do that, because we don't know how strict they're going to be at the competition right now. So there's no margin for error. So make sure that your robot's in. Otherwise, I know some teams last year had to actually take a saw and cut parts of their robot off during the competition. And once you've finished your robot, try and make it look nice, because like, I know last year, I think I was one of the people who asked if we were allowed to use markers to decorate our robot, and our team was one of the first teams to post photos of our decorated robot. But that's one thing that a lot of teams have done now, is put your country flag on your robot, or make it look nice. You're representing your whole country. So make sure that your robot looks good and as presentable as possible. But remember, don't sacrifice any function. Practice driving around your robot once it's done, because a lot of teams have a little bit of trouble picking it up. So try and practice going from one place to another and practice cycling them. And your drivers will have to spend some time doing this. And once all of this is done, discuss your team strategy and plan on working with other teams. You should be able to predict what the things teams are going to be able to do. For example, there are going to be teams that can do everything. There's going to be some teams that can only hang. There's going to be some teams that can only score pollutants but not intake them. And there's going to be many more types of teams. And you should make a plan for how you're going to work with all of these types of teams, so that once you get to the competition, you're set up for success.
And well, as you said, talking about the judges and the inspectors, that was one of the questions we had a few days ago. And I think I even asked you, Arjun, and WhatsApp about if you know how strict the judges are going to be in the competition, and you told us it's completely variable. We don't know. It's going to be up to the judge. It's going to be up to the inspectors or to the judges. So plan teams as many scenarios as possible. Be ready for any kind of judge, like in FGC or FRC. You may have a really, really soft judge or a really, really strict judge. So you have to be ready for each one of the scenarios. And as Arjun said, plan your times, organize your tasks. And what do you think it's a good time for practice, Arjun? 2-3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks?
So I think that, 2 weeks before the competition, you should try and have your robot all done if you can and start practicing driving. I know for our team, we spend like 10 or 20 hours a week practicing driving, and our robot personally was done like 2 or 3 weeks before the competition. We spent a lot of time practicing, but yeah, you should try and spend as much time as practicing driving and set a goal for doing that. Set a goal for how fast you want your robot and your drivers to be able to drive the robot.
Okay, so always practice. Like first scholarships is apply. Here in FGC is practice. So make sure to practice and practice more and then practice again. And well, it's like in FRC, if you practice, you win. And well, I think we got to steam a bit of time. Well, Arjun, before we go, last week in the cultural show, we made a series of questions to the teams that were with us, and they really liked it. So I said, I should make these questions to Arjun and see what does he thinks about some specific points of the competition. So here I got 4 questions about your experience in First Global. And well, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, and the first question says, let me just look for it. Yeah, here it is. What do you like the most from FGC 2018?
So I really love the sense of community that every team had, because we were all very near each other in the same hotels at the same arena. But again, we weren't like too close to each other, as I've heard happened in 2017, where teams were sharing tables.
In our country, so I think you really liked being in Mexico, didn't you?
Yeah, Mexico was great.
No, I know. And the next question. Well, I don't know if you got one, but what was the thing you liked the least from FGC 2018?
Yeah, so my least favorite part of the 2018 competition is, of course, the long hours we had, because we had long hours that I'm not used to, especially at robotics competitions where they make the hours a little bit shorter and end a little bit earlier, like they'll end around 5 or 6 p.m. Here, at 2018, we had to leave the hotel between 6 and 7 a.m., and everybody got back around 10 p.m., which is something that really took a toll on me.
Yeah, if you're in an FRC team, you are maybe used to this. But for example, in FTC, I think they managed the timing better. So well, FGC is like a weird mix of FTC and FRC. So well, guys, especially for those teams that are gonna miss a lot of, they're gonna have a lot of jet lag. For example, us, we're gonna be like 9 hours away from our country. You have to be ready. You have to be ready not only for the competition but for the jet lag, and that maybe it's one of the things we underestimate the most. But if you arrive to Dubai with jet lag, you're not gonna give the best that you can. So you have to be ready and maybe have a plan or a strategy to overpass jet lag. For example, Georgia, you didn't have anyone because the US and Mexico City share like the same time, so it wasn't a problem. And well, I think those were the questions. The next one was about the checklist, but you have already told us. And I think this is all, Arjun, for today. And before we go, as always, I don't know if you got anything to say to the teams that are watching you. And we know that some teams admire you because you know like a lot, and they'd like to know and they'd like to have like a tip from you to them. So go ahead.
For me, a tip is just make sure your robot's legal and make sure that it follows all the rules. Because if you don't, your time at Dubai is not going to be as fun because you're going to be really stressed fixing your robot to make sure it's legal.
Okay, so you heard it, guys. Always make sure that everything you're doing is correct. You got the full information in the web. You got the manuals, you got the game information, the game field information, and a lot of tutorials such as the ones that Arjun and its team has been uploading. Also, us, we have uploaded some tutorials in programming, Team UK, Team USA. So be aware of what we are uploading, and you may get some tutorials about it. And well, we are 4 weeks away from Dubai, and here in Mexico. Here in Team Mexico, we are excited but terrified at the same time. I don't know if we could all give a big shout of how terrified we are. In 1, 2, 3. Ah! Yeah. So that's how Team Mexico feels right now for the competition. We are amazed and terrified. But of course, the best part of this is that we have this kind of opportunities to share with you, Arjun. We know you know a lot about the FGC world, and we're really happy to have you with us today. And well, that's the whole point of the competition, to share what we know with everybody. So let me express you in behalf of Team Mexico. Here we have Jorge too. How happy we are to have you here with us, and how grateful we are for everything you have done for FGC world and for FGC teams. And it's been a pleasure to have you here with us today. Remember that we will have more transmissions about this. We will have more Technical Fridays. Tomorrow we're having our Cultural Saturday. And we want to thank Arjun from Wizards.exe for being here with us today. And well, I don't know if you got any final comment about the transmission.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show, first of all. Again, make sure your robot's legal. One last thing, the video that I just mentioned about holonomic drive programming, it just went public like 10 minutes before the show. So I just posted a link to that in the Twitch chat for programming holonomic drivetrains, and good luck to everybody.
Okay, so Will, we're just in time for what we planned. So it was a pleasure to have you with us here, Arjun. Guys, remember to check their social media. It's below him, Wizards.exe. Also to follow our social media. We will be posting this transmission and further tutorials and information about the competition. Remember to see us tomorrow in our cultural show. We will be sharing along teams Oman, Australia, and Sweden about different topics of our cultural importance in FGC. And of course, thank you for being here in Global Talks. And well, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.